Good afternoon. You're watching a special edition of Business 360 as the Senate convenes as an impeachment court against Vice President Sara Duterte for a second time. I'm Apa Ongpin and this is the Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Mr. President, I still have the floor.
Gusto ko po sanang ireklamo si Senator Pangilinan sa pagsigaw.
The Senate is under attack, was under attack.
The Senate convened as an impeachment court without a Senate coup. Let's get the highlights with Hannah T reporting live. Hannah.
Yes, but the Senate as an impeachment court has officially summoned Vice President Sara Duterte as part of its proceedings on the articles of impeachment transmitted by the House of Representatives. The impeachment court has issued a summons to VP Sara and gave her 10 calendar days to file her official answer. This is after senators formally took their oath and officially convened as an impeachment court, and all Senators Apa were present except Senator Bato de la Rosa. At tama ka dyan. At meron tayong natanggap na impormasyon na supposedly magkakaroon dapat ng Senate coup, which is an attempt to remove Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano as SP, pero hindi raw ito natuloy at kapansin-pansing wala rin sa plenaryo itong si Senator Cheese Escudero kanina na ayon sa ating mga informant ay nagkaroon ng rumors na posible raw siyang bumalik bilang SP. Pero despite this, walang nangyaring kudeta ngayong hapon at sa halip ay nag-convene sila bilang impeachment court. Now, Apa, that the Senate has convened, the next step nga is for the court to issue summons to VP Sara. At in simple terms, this is actually an official notice telling her to answer the impeachment complaint against her. Kung matatandaan natin, yung mga paratang against the VP ay graft and corruption, culpable violation of the Constitution, at betrayal of public trust. At under the process being followed by the Senate, VP Sara will have 10 calendar days to submit her formal answer to the charges. At matapos niyan, yung House Prosecution panel naman will be given 5 days to reply to her answer. Only after these initial pleadings, Apa, are submitted will the actual trial phase begin, where both sides can present evidence, witnesses and arguments before the Senate impeachment court. So ayon na rin dun sa mga nauna nating pahayag kasama si Senate President, the actual trial may actually begin by around June dahil meron pang pre-trial na humigit kumulang nasa 2 hanggang 3 linggo. Sa ngayon, meron tayong nare-receive na impormasyon na posibleng ang dumating dito ang House Prosecution panel, pero nakaantabay ang ilang media mula sa House of Representatives kung makakarating nga sila dito sa loob ng premises. Apa.
Thank you, Hannah T, reporting live from the Senate. Let's try to make sense of all these developments with political analyst Professor Julio Tihanki. Professor, welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, Apa. Good afternoon and congratulations on your new show. Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's talk about impeachment. You know,
Yeah.
Professor, conviction needs 16 votes. Based
Right.
on public positioning and alliances as of right now, where do you see the likely votes and who remains genuinely persuadable?
Yes. Of course, the cliche is that any attempt at wresting power in the Senate is always a numbers game. And we all are aware that the numbers are slim, and the much anticipated and ballyhooed second coup after a week of the other coup that happened last week did not materialize this afternoon. But that doesn't mean that it will not happen, because I think for as long as they have a very, very small margin, the current Senate majority holds with Senator Bato disappearing. He is actually the running man of the Senate, and he has suddenly disappeared. And that leaves the position of Senate President Cayetano at a very precarious situation, because now that the two former independent senators, former Senate President Mig Subiri and Senator J.B. Ejercito, have decided to join the minority. Now it's a very, very close 12-11 count. So it just takes one. And if we are to believe the political chatter this weekend and up until this morning, there was one potential recruit to the supposed coup plotters, but the price was too high to pay, no, for for the turnaround, right? So I think that person wanted to return as Senate President.
What if, is there a possibility that they will just take out Robin Hood Padilla and remove him from the 12?
Well, the new majority actually is composed of legislators who are politically vulnerable. No? There are issues and cases that are pending against practically all the members of the Cayetano majority. So they are vulnerable to any pressure that might be put upon them by Malacanang. Remember, while of course on paper we have three co-equal branches of government, and I have written a lot about this. I have published articles on this in academic journals. That the Philippines is a weak state with a strong presidency, and more so under the 1987 Constitution. The executive, the president, has a lot of powers, no? And perks, no? That may control even the political dynamics within the legislature, the Congress, both houses, the Senate and the House. While the House is more vulnerable to the pressures from Malacanang because of the patronage system and pork barrel politics, Senate is usually independent. But still, the Senate is composed of 24 little presidents and little republics who have their own political interests and agenda. And especially those who are up for re-election, they will be very, very, vulnerable to any offers from the palace.
In 2025, the defense prevailed on the basis of procedure. It never had to
Yes.
argue the facts. Do you
Yes.
expect the VP's camp to fight this case on the facts this time, or are they going to try to torpedo it again on procedure?
Well, hearing the side of the defense for the vice president, I think they're still stuck in the procedural arguments and the legalities of it all, resting on the argument of whether we are supposed to operate at least the impeachment process and the cases filed against the vice president. I'm referring to now I'm getting confused, no? Because now we have two political issues that are intertwined, no? The impeachment and then the participation of Senator Bato de la Rosa given the ICC case, no? But nonetheless, given the track record of the defense of the vice president, they are prone to use the legal technicalities as part of their defense.
Who are the swing senators to watch, and what actually moves them? Public opinion, political alliances, or their prospects for the 2028 elections?
Well, it's a combination of both, institutional, the way the Senate has been configured under the 1987 Constitution. And I've said that, of course, the second one is given the weakness of our party system, unlike in the pre-martial law Senate, in which you have a very clear delineation between two major political parties, that has practically disappeared under the new institutional setup that we have in both chambers of Congress. No? So in the past, you can rely on party affiliation and party loyalty. Nowadays, it's nothing. No? So it's really about the political interests of the senators themselves, and of course their own, as I've said, their politically vulnerable. There are cases filed against them. Their senators have been named as part of the flood control scandal. There are senators who are under regulatory investigation because of their business. No, so these are the more vulnerable ones, and part of the negotiation is that, and that's the reason why up to now I believe that the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee report on the flood control scandal has not seen the light of day, because it's on one hand the minority senators were blocking it, and on the other, I think it's being used as a leverage by Malacanang in order to pressure the vulnerable senators and to one supporting the Senate president that they prefer, and second to vote accordingly in the impeachment.
Is there a single senator whose vote, if it flips, would signal that the whole game has changed?
Yes, of course. The latest chatter until they convened this afternoon was that no less than the former Senate President Chis Escudero was based on reports, demanding to be reinstalled as the Senate President in exchange for his vote. No, and of course that did not happen, but that doesn't mean it will not happen, because remember, Chis Escudero, when he led the coup against Mig Subiri, was perceived largely as a close ally of Malacanang, given the perception that he was close to the First Lady and even to the President Bongbong. And that was the reason why, more or less, the palace apparently was complacent that with Chis as Senate President, their agenda will be realized. No, but unfortunately, the administration failed, in securing the necessary numbers in the midterm elections in 2025. And of course, senators, being political animals, sense that the political wind has changed. And despite the massive patronage and ayuda that was funneled into the midterm elections, the Senate slate, Alyansa para sa Bagong Pilipinas, failed to get the numbers. So, and that, of course, what served as an incentive for Chis Escudero to flip to the other side. And knowing that, given his track record as a politician, of course, there will be no impediment for him to flip again. So, Chis Escudero is the guy to watch. But at the same time, he can repackage himself, unlike Alan Peter Cayetano, who's very cantankerous. The cantankerous Cayetano has a track record of really being shrill. That is his political style ever since. And that's him. But what the Senate needs right now is stability. And it needs to actually regain the trust and integrity that, sadly, in just a matter of days, 3 to 5 days, all the remaining political capital of the institution that gave us the likes of Senator Salonga, Senator Tañadas, and Senator Jokno has been eroded. And now it's been the laughingstock of everyone. And if there's one thing that this new Senate President has achieved, is really to unite different forces in, condemning what has happened in the Senate last week.
That Senate coup was just days before the impeachment court convened. How much influence really does the leadership, the Senate President and the Majority Leader, realistically have over the pace or direction of this trial?
Yes, because the difference is that unlike, for example, the impeachment of the president, in which it is the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court who is the presiding officer, and the Senate President is the co-presiding officer, any position below the presidency is usually presided over by the Senate President. And of course, if you are the presiding officer, you can you have a wide radius of influence over the proceeding, in terms not only of presiding and calling the shots and interpreting the rules of the Senate. So, and determining, the calendar and agenda of the impeachment. So, very, very important. So, hopefully, the constant threat, the political Damocles sword hanging over the new majority over Senate President Cayetano will give him pause, and that they will tread carefully and try not to ram or at least reveal their political biases by outrightly dismissing or putting undue advantage for the defense of the vice president, given that politically they are allied with the Dutertes. So they should be more conscious and cognizant of public opinion, and of course, all eyes are on the Senate at this point.
The articles of impeachment include several allegations in confidential funds, unexplained wealth, and threats against the president. Politically speaking, is there one charge that may prove the most damaging?
Yes, of course, based on the observation of most observers and experts and scholars, it's actually the third article of impeachment, which is the grave threat, because that's quite obvious. I mean, everybody saw that video, and that is the most damning, among the four articles of impeachment. The rest are it will really depend on the evidence and how it will be processed during the trial, and how the House prosecutors would convince everyone of the validity of this evidence. Of course, the defense will always lean on the technicality, as we have seen. They will question, and of course, they will use the legal dictum that all of these are fruits of the poisonous tree, and that it's all part of the fishing expedition. So they will question that. But remember, the impeachment is part legal, but it's mostly political, and it's also theater. And if you have a theatrical Senate President presiding over this, dangerous, right? So, if we remember past impeachment trials at the Senate, you have the calm and collect Senate President Nene Pimentel, and then even during the time of Corona, former Chief Justice Corona was impeached successfully. Even Senate President Juan Ponce Enrile was calm and collect and erudite. I don't know if we can expect that from Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano.
Yeah, I think you answered your own question. Could the Supreme Court still materially affect this process, or is it the Senate that's now firmly in control?
It's of course the Supreme Court, with regard to questions regarding the impeachment. Well, they have last year, they really threw a monkey's wrench on the first impeachment attempt. But right now, with the House really carefully following the instructions of the Supreme Court, and they did not rush the process, hopefully the Supreme Court will not find any reasons to intervene this time.
Okay. Some analysts say that Duterte's allies won't try to kill this trial outright, but will instead try to control it and drag it out just enough to keep her in play for 2028. What do you think?
Of course, yes, and that's how to play it, actually, right? I mean, you dribble the ball, you try to show the public that you're not biased and that you're following the process. But again, given the temperament of the presiding officer, can they achieve that? That's a big question, right?
Yes.
So, if they replace him with, let's say, Mig Subiri, who's known for his consensual style of leadership, or even return Tito Soto to the Senate presidency, then that, even if even if eventually the vice president is found not guilty, no, and acquitted, right? So that's par for the course, no. Or on the other hand, no, if they try to railroad the process and try to kill the impeachment process, then of course the public opinion is would go against it.
Yeah. Realistically, once this trial really begins, are we looking at weeks, months, or longer?
Well, the Corona trial did not stretch for a long period, right? So, and then public opinion really played a big part. In fact, the anti-Sara Duterte, the anti-VP vote is also not expecting a guilty verdict, no, given the slim numbers and the political vulnerability of the senators, everyone, no. In fact, they will not risk getting the ire of the Mindanao voters or the Visayan voters, and it's still a big chunk, no. So, but what they're hoping to accomplish is if they start parading all of these pieces of evidence against the vice president, public opinion will turn against her. But then again, remember the Filipino voter is emotive, no? They always root for the underdog, and if they see that the anti-Duterte forces are and then given the fact that the former president is about to face trial in The Hague, no, it might backfire, no. So they also have to manage their political communications on this.
What development, if any, could genuinely change the trajectory of this case?
So far, the president has not really shown any attempt, no, to. I mean, this Marcos is not like his father, no. So if you look at history and how Ferdinand Marcos was and how he handled the presidency of the Senate. Remember, he was also a Senate president. And I remember reading this account written by national artist Nick Joaquin on how cunning, no, Ferdinand Sr. was when he was Senate president. And of course, we all know when he became a dictator. But Bongbong Marcos has been, what they call in Tagalog, teka-teka, no? So, he should at least, well, we all know that he should be neutral, but of course we know politically that the president has a role to play even in this impeachment.
Okay, well, that was an illuminating discussion. Thank you, Professor
Thank you, Apa.
Julio Tihanki.
Thank you, Apa.
We're taking a quick break. You're watching our rolling coverage on the Senate impeachment court against Vice President Sara Duterte. This is Business 360.
Mr. President, I still have the floor.
Gusto ko po sanang ireklamo si Senator Pangilinan sa pagsigaw.
The Senate is under attack, was under attack.
Welcome back to Business 360. The Senate Impeachment Court formally summons Vice President Sara Duterte. We now get updates from the House prosecution side. Isaiah Mirafuentes of Abante joins us on the line. Isaiah, kumusta na dyan?
Yes, Apa, natapos na nga mag-convene ang Senado bilang impeachment court laban kay Vice President Sara Duterte. Pero hanggang sa ngayon, hindi natin nakita dito sa Senado ang buong miyembro ng prosecution team. Ang sinasabi nila sa atin, nakausap ko kanina si Representative Joel Chua, maging si Representative Tere Ridon. Ang sabi nila sa atin, hindi na sila pupunta dito sa Senado, subalit nasa labas lang sila ng Senate premises. Ang paliwanag sa atin ni Congressman Joel Chua, ito daw ay dahil wala naman silang formal invitation at hindi naman sila tinawag sa sesyon ngayong hapon. So hanggang sa mga oras na ito, ang eksaktong ang sinabi sa atin ng mga staff ng mga mambabatas APA, they are just 5 minutes away from the Senate premises. So umasa sila this afternoon na matatawag sila sa session, pero nga nakita natin na hindi sila tinawag kanina sa pag-convene ng Senado. Ang sinasabi nila sa atin, the reason why they still tried na pumunta dito sa Senate kasi nga handa sila. Gusto nila ipakita sa mga senador na handa na sila sakaling mag-convene, sakaling simula na ang impeachment trial, at gusto rin nilang humarap sila kung sakaling kakailanganin na ipaliwanag nila ang articles of impeachment. Pero ayon sa mga mambabata, sa kabilangan ng hindi sila naging kabilang ng pag-convene ngayong araw, ang sinasabi nila sa atin, masaya pa rin sila dahil sa kabilangan nito ay natuloy na mag-convene at magsisimula na ang trial laban kay Vice President Sara Duterte na anila matagal nang hinihintay ng taong bayan.
Maraming salamat, Isaiah Mirafuentes reporting. Senator Francis Escudero and at least 3 other senators were reportedly ready to break away from the Senate majority. They supposedly planned to join former Senate President Tito Soto's camp in a new push to unseat Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano. But 2 Senate sources said the shift came with a condition. Escudero should be reinstated as Senate President before his group would formally join the anti-Cayetano coalition. One source close to the talks said several senators who first backed Cayetano are now reconsidering their support after a chaotic week that culminated in the shooting incident at the Senate. Former Ilocos Sur Governor Luis Chavit Singson denies any role in the escape of Senator Ronald dela Rosa. Veteran columnist Mon Tulfo had claimed that Senator Bato had slipped out of the Senate and boarded the yacht of a famous politician to go to Batangas. From there, De La Rosa supposedly got on a helicopter to Mindanao. But Singson insists he has not spoken to Bato in years.
Wala sinungaling yun dahil si Montol po, matagal ko lang kilala yan. Talagang gano'n yun kung saan-saan pumapanig. Hindi po totoo yan. Unang-una, they can easily check sa yacht club kung umalis yung yacht ko.
Singson expects authorities to raid his home and he's daring them to. His only condition, no planted evidence. We're taking a quick break. You're watching our rolling coverage on the Senate impeachment court against Vice President Sara Duterte. This is Business 360.
Mr. President, I still have the floor.
Gusto ko po sanang ireklamo si Senator Pangilinan sa pagsigaw.
The Senate is under attack, was under attack.
Welcome back to Business 360. I'm Apa Ongpin. Rights groups are staging a protest right now over the developments in the Senate impeachment court and the escape of Senator Bato de la Rosa. Let's check with Leanne Bustillos, who's on the line. Leanne, how's the situation there?
Yes, Apa, humigit kumulang 400 relihista mula sa iba't ibang grupo sa ilalim ng Makabayan Block nagtungo kanina lamang sa Senado upang manawagan na ituloy ang impeachment trial laban kay Vice President Sara Duterte. Kasabay din niya ng panawagan na ituloy na ang pag-aresto kay Senator dela Rosa kaugnay ng sinahang nitong ICC warrant. Pasado 4:30 nang matapos ang naging kilos protesta at kasalukuyan ay halos wala nang natira sa mga protesters. Yan ay matapos bigla ang pumuhos ang malakas na ulan dito sa ng Senado, pero nabigyan naman ng pag-asa ang mga protesters matapos marinig ang balita na mayroon na natuloy ang pag-convene ng Senado sa impeachment nga ni VP Sara. Kaugnay niyan, nanawagan din naman ang grupo na accountability wala naman sa Senate leadership matapos umano nitong hayaan makatakas si dela Rosa. Hindi rin umano ligtas sa pananagutan administrasyon ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos. Paliwanag nila, Pangulo umano ang punot dulo ng iba't ibang issue ng korupsyon na kinahahat ng bansa sa kasalukuyan. Samantala, mayroon ding ilang pro-Duterte groups na nakabantay sa kabilang bahagi naman ng JW Jocno Boulevard. Umigit kumulang 900 police personnel naman nakadeploy sa lugar para tiyakin ang seguridad sa gitna ng presensya ng masasalungat na grupo sa harap ng Senado.
Salamat, Leanne Bustillo, sa ulat mo. U.S. President Donald Trump warned Iran to act fast towards a peace deal or face consequences. He posted on Truth Social that the clock is ticking for Tehran. He made that warning after a drone strike caused a fire at the nuclear plant in the United Arab Emirates. Iran increased attacks on the UAE after Trump announced a naval mission to try to open the Strait of Hormuz. Trump suspended the operation after 48 hours. The Philippine peso extended its decline against the US dollar, sliding to a new all-time low. The peso closed at 61.75 per dollar, weaker than Friday's record close of 61.72. Analysts say ongoing political instability is one of the reasons why investors are shifting away from the peso. Government infrastructure spending drops in March as some public works projects wind down in the wake of the flood control scandal. The infrastructure and other capital outlays fell by 48% to 59.1 billion pesos. The Department of Budget and Management says that Public Works Department spent less after wrapping up some carryover projects. The DBM also says some payments were delayed because billing claims are now being checked more strictly. More stories when we return. This is Business 360. More developments. Welcome back to Business 360. I'm Apa Ongpin. The Philippine gaming industry opens the year in the red. Revenues were down nearly 16% in the first quarter. Gross gaming revenues fell to 87.6 billion pesos, down from 104 billion in the same period last year. PAGCOR says the decline was driven mostly by the electronic gaming sector, which suffered a 22% drop due to weaker consumer spending. But PAGCOR remains optimistic that betting on continued investment in integrated resorts and digital gaming will turn things around. San Miguel Corporation posts higher first quarter revenue, up by double digits from a year ago. First quarter revenue climbed 19% to more than 428 billion pesos. The conglomerate credits the surge to stronger fuel and oil sales, plus steady demand across its energy and food businesses. The Philippine Stock Exchange Index starts the week in the red, dragged down by the uncertainty on the Iran war. The PSEI settled at the 5,900 level, with almost all indices down. Trading was mixed among the day's most active stocks. Ayala Corporation led the losers, falling nearly 4%, while DigiPlus posted the day's biggest gain, up more than 2%. The banking sector's bad loan ratio declined in March, a sign borrowers are keeping up with their payments. Latest data from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas showed the non-performing loan ratio eased to 3.29% in March from the month before. It was also slightly lower than the 3.3% recorded in March 2025. Malacanang has confirmed the appointment of a new budget chief, Kim Robert De Leon. Bilyonaryo News Channel first reported De Leon's impending appointment days before the palace made it official. De Leon returns to the Department of Budget and Management after serving as an undersecretary from 2021 to 2022. He later moved to the Department of Transportation as undersecretary from 2022 to 2024. De Leon replaces acting DBM Chief Rolando Toledo, who will now serve on the Board of Trustees of the Government Service Insurance System. In a statement, Toledo says he respects the wisdom of the President's decision and extends his wholehearted support to the new DBM Secretary. And that's Business 360. We'll keep tracking the moves that matter across markets, policy, and the economy. I'm Apa Ongpin. Thank you for joining us. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.